Today I'm going to be talking about intermittent fasting and how I used it to help me lose weight. Stay tuned and keep watching. So in my last video, I talked about some simple and basic tips to get you started on your weight loss journey. But today we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting and how to use it to lose the weight. People think that it's a diet. It's not a diet, you guys. All it is an eating window. So you have a time of non-eating, a non-eating window, and an eating window. Basically times where you cannot eat at all, that would be fasting, and then you have a window where you eat all of your meals for that period of time. In order for it to be effective, it has to be at least a 14 to 16 hour fast, meaning that for 14 to 16 hours you are in your non-eating time window. That's how it works in order for it to be effective. So basically the idea behind intermittent fasting is that once you reach a certain amount of time where you haven't been eating, your body is basically forced to go into the stored fats to gain energy. So it puts you in what's called a ketosis state, where your body is now consuming stored fat for purposes of energy. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the more simplistic way of how intermittent fasting works. That's why it's very important that you have to have a time window where you're not eating, so that you can allow your body to go into that what's called ketosis state, where it is now gathering energy from your stored fat. Some research does suggest that men can have a longer fasting window than women due to hormonal aspects. So I definitely suggest, by any means, I am not a medical professional, you guys, so I definitely suggest for you, if you're interested in intermittent fasting, to do more research, especially as women, because it can, from what I've read and researched, can kind of throw your hormones off a little bit. No matter what, make sure that you talk to your medical professional. Make sure you talk to your doctor, because I am not one, but I'm just sharing my experience as far as the research that I was able to do. And I did it, you guys, and I did have some great results from it. I was able to see some really good results. So what I did is called a 16 to 8 hour window, which basically means I was in a fasting state, a non-eating state, for 16 hours of my day, and then I had an 8-hour window to be able to eat. Part of the reason why intermittent fasting also works so effectively, besides the fact that it's starting to get energy from your stored fats, is also because when you think about it, an 8-hour window to eat is, you won't know until you do it, but believe me when I tell you, an 8-hour window is not really that much time to eat 3 full meals. Okay, I was attempting to do it that way, and I remember just feeling so full, believe it or not, because literally it felt like you're literally eating back to back to back within those 8 hours of time. So that is another big reason I think intermittent fasting helps and works, is because you're gonna start to eat less, or you're gonna feel fuller quicker because you're eating in such a short amount of time. Make sure that most of your fasting time, and where you're not eating, obviously, is during your sleep time. That's gonna help you a lot. So I would have my last meal at 8 p.m., which was good because I'd feel full, I feel satiated, and I wasn't feeling so hungry. And then I would go to bed around 10:30, 11, which again, I wasn't feeling like, didn't give me time to feel hungry. So I would suggest eating your last meal and then maybe planning your sleep time around 2.5, 3 hours after, so that that hunger feeling doesn't start to kick in and you're still feeling satisfied. As you do it, it becomes easier. I kind of already had some of those habits and lifestyle mistakenly, and people will joke and say that too, like, oh, I've been intermittent fasting my whole life, because what do people do is they skip what's called, they skip breakfast, right? The meal breakfast, which technically, if you think about it, and I've read and heard this before, breakfast, simply breakfast, all it means is break fast. Like if you break it down, you're break fast, you're breaking your fast. So we've been so ingrained in our society to think like, you have to have breakfast, and breakfast is the main meal of the day, and this and that. And I'm not by any means saying I agree or disagree. All I'm getting you to do is just to think about it from a different perspective. Breakfast simply means you're breaking your fast, and whatever time that is for you, just do it at a time that works best for you. I wasn't taking the time to stop and sit and have breakfast or anything like that, and I especially didn't want to do that because that's another mistake that side note, that's another mistake that we make when we have that idea or that mentality like breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But then what's promoted to all of us for breakfast, you've got these sugary cereals, you've got these sugary pastries, you've got these sugary muffins, you've got toast with butter, you've got bacon, you've got potatoes, eggs, they're okay unless you're getting them from like Denny's or IHOP and they're smothered in oil and butter. But the point is, like, a lot of the breakfast items that are like advertised to us, especially because we're always on the go and all this and for convenience, are all like horrible for you. Like a bunch orange juice with a bunch of sugar, don't get me started, and a ton of pastries and sweets, and even the cereals that we eat, like all these sugary foods. All that to say, when I started my weight loss journey, I kind of got rid of that whole have to have breakfast idea, because I found myself losing ideas on like healthy breakfast food items, which I might do a video on that too, like good healthy breakfast food items, because I feel like we need more of that. Anyway, back to what I'm saying is, for me, it was easy to cut out the breakfast. I was doing that already anyway, but I was having my main meal around noon. So for the first 4 or 5 days, I felt it, because come like noonish time, my tummy would start to rumble. I will admit, the first few days are hard. I'd say like the first 4 or 5 days were pretty difficult. After a week, I was starting to like feel good and get used to it. But for some people, intermittent fasting doesn't work. I have a good friend who, she said she tried it and she did really try, but she also has a very, very busy, high-paced job. She's a nurse. Little shout out to her. I won't say who she is, but she's a nurse. So she has a very high pace. She's an ER nurse at that. So very fast paced, on the go kind of job, very hard for her to like actually just sit down and grab a meal. So she was telling me it became really hard for her on her eating windows. Like when it was time to have lunch, there was times she couldn't have lunch at that specific time. Like she couldn't sit down to break her fast and have her meal. And so it became really difficult for her, because it got to a point where she was getting hangry and she wasn't able to keep to the schedule. So that's definitely one thing that you really want to consider when you're doing intermittent fasting is it going to work with you and your schedule? You have to make sure that you're able to eat at your eating windows, because really when you think about it, it is a very short amount of time throughout the day to be able to consume your food. Speaking about that schedule and doing what works for you, another important point is this is not something that you have to do every single day. When I started, I didn't realize that was the case. I thought you had to literally do it every day of the week for it to work, but that's actually not necessarily the case. It could still be effective if you do like, I'd say do 3 days in a row, 3 to 5 days in a row, then maybe one day take a break, then go back 3, 4, 5 days in a row. You can do it like that. Make sure that you take it slow, okay? So a 16 non-eating window, I just kind of went full on, but you'll probably be more encouraged if you take it slow. So maybe instead of 16-hour non-eating window, start with a 14 hours, a 13 to 14-hour non-eating window. That'll help you, and do that for I'd say at least a week. Do that for a couple weeks to get your body adjusted. And if you feel like, if you're feeling good and you're feeling adjusted, then you can start to add more time. If you're feeling like it's not working for you, try to take a break. It's okay to take breaks. Maybe do 2, 3, I would say at least 3. Try at least 3 days in a row of fasting, and then take 1 day break. Break the fast. Don't do it for that 1 day, and then the next day start over again. And if you find yourself feeling good, if you find your body's adjusting well, now you can take it to 4 days straight in a row and then take a break, and then 5 days straight in a row and then take a break, and so forth. So anyway, oh, one last really big thing. You cannot, and I repeat, you cannot have not one single item except water. That is the only thing you can have in your non-eating windows. You can only have water. People I know have made the mistake of thinking that they're doing intermittent fasting, and then the problem is they're only having, example, coffee in the morning for breakfast, but they're having cream and sugar in their coffee. That cream and sugar is going to completely break your fast, because what's happening is the cream and sugar is going to spike the insulin levels, and it's going to take away from your body looking to stored fat for energy. It's going to take you away from your ketosis state. So yeah, I mean, my friend laughed at me because I was as strict to where with the intermittent fasting and not having anything, because I didn't want not a single calorie in me or a single thing of sugar, nothing to like spike my insulin, or not spike it, but activate my insulin and take me out of that ketosis state. So my friends would laugh because I was so strict about it. I would not even have it so much as a piece of gum until it was time to be in my eating window. So that's also a very important tip to consider. Make sure that you're not having anything. If you're a coffee lover, I'm sorry for you guys. You're gonna have to drink that black. I wouldn't even attempt like those substitute sugars like stevia or anything like that, because it could take you out of your fasting windows. So I know that may be a hard one for you coffee lovers, but it is what it is. If you want to try intermittent fasting, I'd say do it that way. That definitely guarantees your chances of it being a successful fasting window. So that is all that I have for today. Thank you so much for staying to the end. And if you've had any experience, please let me know about your time and how it was if you did intermittent fasting, or what you think of it. Some people are pro, some people are against it, some people swear by it. I'm not here to debate that. All I can say is that I personally tried it and I found it to be very effective for me, especially as far as losing weight and in my weight loss journey. If you do decide to try it, hopefully you find the same is for you. And so anyway, like, comment, subscribe, share, everything. I love you guys. Have a great day. Bye.